Hello, welcome to another edition of A Spoonful of Help Desk. I'm Lisa Smith. Today we're going to be discussing 4 very important audits to perform in your payroll department. Now, a lot of people will ask me about these 4 audits. Are they all really necessary? And today I will tell you yes, they are. And I'll give you a little piece of information as to why they're necessary. The first audit I'm going to describe for you is the W-4 audit. Yes, we all know the W-4 is the cradle of payroll, right? The new employee comes in, it's a very regular part of onboarding. You hand them the new W-4, and what is the first thing that they say to you? How do you fill this out? What is an allowance, right? You can tell them to read the instructions. That's a disaster. They don't understand them for one thing. The other thing is when they fill out the worksheet, it tells them to claim like 47 allowances, and we know that that is ridiculous. So then you have people who want to cross through and make corrections and use liquid paper and then file 99 or 27 or exempt, and you have all of these different circumstances that come up, and they want to ask you advice on all of these things. But what we understand from the I.R.S. is that we cannot advise on Form W-4. So if you are payroll, human resources, a supervisor at work, you are not allowed to give advice. So you have to refer them out to someone who provides them with tax advice in the world, maybe H&R Block, or maybe you send them to a TurboTax website or the I.R.S. website, heaven forbid, or somewhere else to get their advice, Aunt Sally or Grandma or whoever helps them with their taxes every year, right? So that can also be a disaster. But one way or the other, it can't be you. So what can happen is that you end up, if you don't know the rules, with an invalid W-4 in your hands. And I teach this class across the country, and every single class I teach, we will cover how to audit your W-4. And I would say about half, maybe 3/4 of the class will take furious notes once I start in on exactly what invalidates the W-4, because most people realize at that moment that they've never audited their W-4s, and when they go back to do the audit, it is very likely that they have several that are invalid. Do you know that if you have an invalid W-4 under federal code, you should be withholding at $0 until the time the employee comes in and gives you a valid W-4? Very interesting, isn't it? So right now, today, you could be breaking I.R.S. guidelines by simply not withholding at $0 when you have an invalid W-4 on file. So something to think about, another reason to do an audit. And there are many other consequences that could come from not having valid W-4s that you keep on file for your employees. We don't have time to go through all of those today, and we also don't have time to break down what invalidates the W-4. But rest assured that we will be issuing another section of Help Desk Spoonfuls, and so you'll stay tuned for that, I'm sure. Another audit you want to look into on a regular basis is your I-9s. The I-9 may or may not be completed through the payroll department in your organization, but I always put it in here because the payroll department is technically considered to be the home of the I-9. So whether or not you handle it that way in your business, payroll should know what is going on with the I-9. Okay, it's just a good practice to have. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that Homeland Security may contact your department upon the initiation of an inspection. And so one way or the other, payroll may have to have some sort of, albeit brief, conversation with Homeland Security. So it's good to know that you will have an educated point of view if that would occur, and you could speak to them from a point of knowledge. Now, when you are auditing your I-9s, you need to make sure that you have all of the guidelines in place, the most current, up-to-date information. We can't go through all of that in this spoonful but in the future we will have an I-9 compliance spoonful for you, so stay tuned. Have a really good audit though, because we have a 2-page I-9 now. The new one came out last year. You want to make sure you have the newest, greatest, latest information. Go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure that if any corrections are necessary, you get them taken care of per Homeland Security guidelines, which are very strict. So you'll want to make sure you look all of those up and get the details. Keep in mind that if you are an E-Verify provider or an E-Verify participant, I should say, then that does not exempt you from an I-9 inspection. So you will have to pay fines for technical errors. So keep that in mind as well. I had a gentleman in class in Tennessee a few months back when I taught there. He is an E-Verify participant, and he said that they were fining him for small errors. He said one of his biggest errors was he wrote in the abbreviation SS # under column C when they handed the Social Security card in as one of their identifying documents. And they fined him $110 every time they saw that, because that was not considered an appropriate abbreviation for the Social Security card. And when you think about it, SS # means Social Security number. If the name of the document is Social Security card, then that would not be an appropriate abbreviation. So use your common sense and really do your research and make sure that everyone is fully trained on the appropriate way that an I-9 should be completed. Okay, so a lot of guidelines on that. We will have a future spoonful on that one as well. Another audit that you really need to undertake is, are your exempt employees really qualified to receive the exemption so that you are not required to pay overtime and minimum wage? All of those guidelines are under scrutiny right now because President Obama wants to overhaul that section of FLSA. So keep your ears and eyes open for that over the next 18 months. We will see some changes coming that way. The salary requirement will likely be changing and will come in probably just under $1,000 a month. Right now it's set at $455, so we will be seeing that raise most likely. We will also be seeing the criteria for what constitutes an exempt set of duties tighten up. Okay, so right now we have a little bit of play in certain areas, or some gray language that's being interpreted one way or another in certain parts of the country. We're going to see a lot of that tighten up too. When I teach this across the country, I teach it very strictly. So in future spoonfuls, I will be giving you my strict take on this, but keep in mind that, you know, we're going to wait for final outcomes as well on that interpretation. That will be probably taking another 18 months to get. So keep your ears open. Have a good set of guidelines though for right now, and make sure that all of those jobs qualify if the workers doing those jobs are not being paid minimum wage and overtime. Okay, so that's going to be something to keep in mind audit wise as well. The final audit I want to talk to you about today in your payroll department is, do you have workers who are receiving W-2s, which is what the IRS wants, but do you also have workers who are receiving just 1099s, or maybe receiving nothing but a check if they don't qualify for a 1099 because they didn't make $600 with you? Okay, so if you have anyone who works for you that is not getting a W-2 from you this year, why? That's what you want to audit, okay? And do they qualify not to receive a W-2? Now, many employers think, well, that's not the job of payroll. That's an accounts payable issue, or that's somebody else's problem. That's not the payroll department's problem. Actually, it is the payroll department's problem, because in an audit, payroll will be questioned. Why did you feel it wasn't necessary to put this person on payroll? Why are you not governing this individual as a worker who is an employee? So you'll have to maybe answer those questions with intelligent answers. And intelligent answers are not, I don't know, I don't do that. It's not my job. I never thought about it before. Never bothered to look that up. Those are not answers that work in an audit, right? We have to give answers from the law, from a case that's been settled a certain way, from research that we've been done, or that we have performed, I should say. It can't be that, Bob or Sally at the other business like ours does it that way, so that's why we do it that way. It doesn't work that way when we're trying to justify our actions to an auditor or an investigator, right? So we really want to make sure that we know why we do things the way we do. That is called establishing reasonable basis, okay? And so anytime we're asked those questions, we have to come up with good, reasonable answers. Now, the government is very hot on the trail of worker misclassification. As a matter of fact, it is considered to be the #1 audit in the United States because the state level is on it, the federal level is on it. The Department of Labor, as a matter of fact, has dedicated more funds and workers to it in 2014 in order to really target employers who want to try to do this little number of getting out of paying employment taxes. With the Affordable Care Act and the number of workers being set at 50 or above for compliance with the ACA, a lot of employers who are on that borderline may try to drop down below the 50 by turning W-2 employees into 1099 contract workers. And the government's watching out for that action as well. So if you have any of that going on in your organization, make sure that that comes to a complete halt, right? Because that is going to be something that they're really watching for in the next couple of years. So all of these things put together have really made this the #1 audit in the United States. So you may wonder, how am I ever going to find time to input all of these audits into my new regimen? How am I going to pay people to spend the time to create the checklists and do the research and finally implement everything, right? And those are valid concerns. I know, I teach this class, like I said, across the country. I hear these concerns all of the time. So let me tell you what I tell them. Help is on your desk. How many times can I say this, right? Help is on your desk. This is why I.R.S. Seminars created the Help Desk resource. Help Desk for Payroll Professionals does all of these things for you. In Help Desk for Payroll Professionals, you will find checklists for all of the audits I've described to you today. You will find an I-9 compliance section with all of the Homeland Security guidelines, the documents, the checklists, and so forth. So a very, very comprehensive section that will help you maintain compliance that you need. In addition, there is a whole 4 pages worth of frequently asked questions from the field. These have been confirmed through Homeland Security and are solid, airtight answers for you to take advantage of. We also have the entire Fair Labor Standards Act in Help Desk. So you don't have to go dig it up and find it and hope you have the right version and so forth. This is the most recent with all of the most recent amendments to the FLSA. You can read it for yourself. You can take a look at the exempt qualifications and you can decide if you have what you need. We also have an exempt checklist, so you can walk through the checklist to make sure that the jobs that you have in your organization qualify. We also have the W-4 information that you need with I.R.S. publications that will help you to know if you have invalid information on your W-4s and what to do about them. And then finally, we have an independent contractor compliance section in Help Desk as well. So we have so much information that is going to help you on so many different levels. Also included in all of our Help Desk modules is about a 45 to 55 minute webinar. And in the payroll module, this one specifically covers how to institute all of these audits and others in your payroll department. So if you have payroll personnel or other HR type personnel who need to be trained on this type of an audit or that type of an audit, this can also not only be a helpful resource to turn to, but can also be a very nice training tool as well. Help Desk products are updated on at least an annual basis to make sure compliance is maintained. But we also update Help Desk just when extra help is needed. So if we find a useful tool, we'll put it in. Maybe we'll create a useful tool and we'll put it in. We'll let you know so that you can decide if you would like to receive an update. Remember, the first update is always included in your purchase price. And after that, updates are only $49. So a very, very low cost way of maintaining the compliance you need to make sure you are on top of your game. Remember, it's no big trick. Help is on your desk. Keep calm. Employ on. Sit back, relax. Until next time, I'm Lisa Smith.